there, I'm Casey.
And I'm Corey.
And we are the Wright Brothers. I'd like to welcome you to our June podcast. And if you haven't noticed, we're actually introducing a more relaxed format, which is just a more technical way of saying we're going to be sitting down for this podcast.
It's really a more technical way of saying we're lazy.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
So I'd like to welcome you to our June podcast. We've got a lot of fun things we're going to talk to you about. Two notes right up front, two very special things that are going to be going on in the month of June. The first is Casey's birthday, of course.
That's right, very important day.
And actually, by the time that we send this out, it actually will be, your birthday will have already passed. So I'd like to say happy belated birthday.
Well, I am a little disappointed that my own brother forgot my birthday until the next day, but thank you.
Case, we're filming this a couple of weeks ahead of time, so I haven't actually
I know, but by the time they see this, it'll be a day after my birthday.
Okay, well, happy birthday.
Yeah, well, thanks anyways.
And more importantly, this month is one of our favorite holidays of the year. It is Flag Day on June 14th.
I can't wait. I really can't.
So we've got a lot of special things planned for Flag Day already. I hope you do too. I'm sure you do. One of America's finest holidays.
Absolutely.
This month we've got a lot to talk to you guys about. We're going to be sharing with you a little bit about some advanced email etiquette.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting. I mean, we see a lot of email. Obviously, we send a lot of email, and so, you know, it's one of those things that we're naturally experts on. We've also done a lot of research on, but I gotta say, you know, when I'm looking out there, one of the things that happens, a lot of people who are sending emails, and they think they're helping you by using certain practices, and the bottom line is a lot of those things just really aren't helpful. So that's what we're going to dive into. You know, a lot of the best practices when dealing with email, how to make sure your emails are getting read and responded to.
A lot of quick little pointers that we've got for you, so grab a pen and paper. We've got a lot of good stuff. Let's dive in. Alright, now when dealing with email, there are a lot of best practices and things that we've found that work and don't work in order to get your emails read and responded to. So we're going to quickly run over a few of them. The first one is use descriptive subject lines and let them know what you're going to be talking about in your email with your subject line.
Yeah, exactly. You know, a lot of times you'll see, I think actually probably the most common thing you see is a subject line that'll say something to the effect of, you know, report from yesterday. You know, when really a much more helpful thing would be something to the effect of sales figures from June 13th to June 20th. You know, because report from yesterday is something that, first of all, doesn't really tell you much, but second of all, if you're looking at that 2 months from now, that doesn't mean anything to you. You know, I mean, that's something that, and a lot of people, as they archive and they keep archive files of their emails, you really want to help them out with that. So use very descriptive subject lines just to sort of help your recipient out and make sure that your emails get read.
Absolutely. Now, the second thing to keep in mind, make messages one topic. Don't talk about a ton of different things in one message. It's going to be a lot easier for the recipient. It's also going to be a lot more effective on your end.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is really interesting for a couple of reasons because, first of all, you know, today people don't really read emails. And I know that kind of sounds like a funny thing, but people get so many emails today. I mean, you have literally people out there get 100, 200, 300 emails a day. And when you're getting that volume of emails, you just can't read every single word of every single email. So what you invariably start to do is scan your emails and try and extract the, you know, the main point from it. But the problem is if you've got 3 or 4 points in there, you know, I might just extract that main point, think I've got it, delete that email. Now I haven't gotten those other 2 or 3 things, and you don't even know. I think I've responded to it, and there's a total breakdown in communication there.
Absolutely, and the other reason is there's so many people nowadays that are receiving and reading their emails on a handheld device, whether it be their BlackBerry or their Trio, and scrolling becomes a major issue. If you've got an email that's several paragraphs long, it takes forever to scroll. It becomes a lot easier to miss things. Most people using a handheld device to receive an email would much rather receive 3 different emails with 1 topic each than 1 email with 3 different topics. So
Absolutely.
Make each email only contain 1 topic and be specific to that topic. Now, another thing to keep in mind when sending email is use readable black fonts and use plain backgrounds.
Yeah, no, and this is something, you know, I think it's really easy to get excited about the picture backgrounds and your own stationery. I mean, it's you invariably think, hey, you know, if I have stationery for my thank you letters, that looks nicer than just using plain white paper. The same rules must apply to email. But the truth of the matter is that it doesn't translate that well. Really, there's a breakdown when it translates to the different email programs, and sometimes they just arrive as attachments, or they tile the text and makes it completely unreadable. You can get some really loopy things happening when you use backgrounds.
Yeah, so use your plain backgrounds. That way you know that your email gets to them the way that you intended it to get to them, and that they can read and reply to any email that you send. Now, the next thing to keep in mind is use read receipts and urgency flags sparingly.
Yeah, now this is something that I've started to notice a big uptick in this, particularly over the past year, which I think indicates, people are starting to notice there's a lot more emails out there, there's a lot more volume, a lot more people are jumping on the email bandwagon, and what that means is that if you want to make sure your messages are read, you got to do something to make them stand apart. Now, instead of using really good email etiquette and using very descriptive subject lines and doing one topical emails, what most people will do, or not most people, but some people will do now, is use the urgency flags and read receipts to make sure they're getting read. And I just have to tell you, as somebody who sees a lot of these, 99% of the time when somebody sends me one of those, it's not any more urgent than anything else I've seen that day. And it's sort of a little bit like crying wolf, and there's a little bit of a breakdown in terms of the relationship, and also, it doesn't make me respond any quicker.
Absolutely. Let the recipient decide which are the most urgent and which are the ones that they need to reply to first, rather than the sender. That type of etiquette will definitely be much more well received.
Absolutely. And if you really have an important email, you say, what if I have an important email, I need to make sure that they read it right away. The best thing to do is to send that email through and then place a phone call to make sure that they've gotten that email.
Absolutely. Now another tip would be when you're replying to any emails with attachments, be sure to remove the attachment once you reply.
Yeah, absolutely. Now this is something that a lot of today's email programs will do for you just automatically, but some of them don't, And this is really important if, say, I'm sending you 20 photos of my trip, and you're just sending a note to say, hey, thanks, I'm glad you sent that, and you reply with all those photos, that can be a 10 megabyte email just to say thanks. Well, I'd appreciate it if instead you just delete those pictures and send me that little note.
Right, I'm sure that you already have the pictures since you sent them to me, so you don't need them.
Precisely.
So the last tip that we've got for you today is if you're using an autoresponder, make them time specific.
Yeah, now this is something that's really interesting. A lot of people are starting to use autoresponders, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, particularly if, say, you're going to be on vacation or if you're out of the office for very specific hours, you can't get back to email for say 5 or 6 hours. But be specific, don't just have an autoresponder for every single email that says something like, I'll get back to your email within 24 to 48 hours. That doesn't really tell me anything. It really doesn't. Instead, tell me, in fact, if anything, it tells me that you've sent me this autoresponder so you think I'm dealt with and you're probably going to put me off for a little bit. I would rather just get to the email when you can. Or if you're going to use an autoresponder, have it be very specific. Something to the effect of, hey, I'm out of the office on meetings until, this afternoon at 5 o'clock. I'll be returning emails this evening between 7 and 8 p.m. If you haven't heard back, please place a call or send a follow-up email. That's very helpful.
And every bit as important as sending it time specifically, respond when you say you're going to respond. It really takes you to that next level of professionalism and will make people appreciate you getting back to them in a timely manner. Even if it has to be off for a day or 3 days or a week if you're on vacation or out of the country, they'll still appreciate it very much more. So those are some of the things that we've seen and we've learned through our years of doing email and hundreds of emails a day. We get to see a lot of things, and those are the things that if you really want to get your emails read and responded to on a consistent basis, follow those simple guidelines, and people are going to really start to understand that email. They're going to appreciate your etiquette, and you're going to have a much higher level of regard for people that you're sending emails to and from. So keep those in mind when you're sending emails to us, to family, to clients, to whoever, and they will definitely appreciate them more. Now let's dive into, that pretty much wraps up our podcast, so let's dive into the final segment and review some of our content.
Perfect. Alright, now let's take a look at this month's content. You should have already received, in fact you have already received, your Camp Like a Pro publication. So the first thing that you will be receiving after that will be your June newsletter. And in this June newsletter it has a bunch of great stories. Among it is unlocking your full creative potential, how to protect yourself from food poisoning, how to speak car, so a lot of good stuff.
Did you do anything on how to celebrate your birthday, or?
My birthday?
Yeah.
We really wrestled with that. The editors and I, we were wrestling with whether or not we should include that, and in the end we opted not to.
Okay. Fair enough.
Next year.
And the following week after that, we'll be doing an emergency prepared guide. It's some great tips on how to prepare yourself and your family for any sort of emergency, whether it be fire, earthquake, any sort of disaster, how to perform CPR, different things like that. Something that you'll definitely want to keep around your house and for any time that something might strike.
Exactly. And then last, we always have our June market summary, and that will conclude the June content.
Well, that is our June podcast. I'd like to thank you, as always, for joining us. Hopefully you had as much fun watching it as we did making it. You might have noticed that we actually didn't state a location of where we're coming from today. We're at a local studio, no traveling, so we don't really have a native language. But this was our lazy podcast, with the sitting down and everything. So we'd like to say later, bro.